Hello again. I'm kind of far away from the Kerbal Space Center right now, but today we're going to be going even further. In our space program so far, we started out with humble beginnings, barely hopping off the launch pad, gradually gaining the tech needed to land on Minmus, and later on, the Mun. And last week we went interplanetary for the first time, visiting the Duna system, landing on the red planet and its moon Ike. But now, it's time to go further. Much further. Now that we've unlocked RTGs, we can go to places where the sun barely shines. The furthest celestial body from home in the entire game. Eeloo, in-game equivalent of Pluto. Like the last couple of missions, we're doing things Apollo style, with a lander fitted out with all the science kit we've unlocked so far, that can actually be used on Eeloo that is, and that's what I'm currently building in the on-screen time-lapse right now. I briefly considered including a deployable rover for this mission, but I changed my mind when I realised that we only have the really rubbish tiny rover wheels, so that can be something we consider for next time when we've unlocked better wheels. As for the ship itself, I'm going with a slightly more luxurious vessel for Jeb, Bill and Bob, because this mission will have a much longer duration than our previous trips to Minmus, Mun, Duna and Ike. So while completely unnecessary, I added a large 4-seat crew module to supplement the living space provided by the lander capsule and main command pod, and I also added 3 private rooms for the Kerbals. And to avoid them developing muscle atrophy or glaucoma or any of the other issues that long-term microgravity environments can cause, I stuck each of the 3 bedrooms on the arms of a spinning gravity ring. The idea being that they'll sleep in the rooms at the very least, so a lot of hours of the day, or hypothetical day in this case, are spent in the gravity ring. And I'm also just going to pretend there's cryogenic stasis pods in each of the 3 rooms, so during the very long periods of deep space cruising, the Kerbals won't be aware of the passage of time while being blissfully unaware in stasis. I'll add some custom flags to the pod exteriors later to kind of help sell this idea. As for the rest of the craft, we're using liquid fuel only for the space vehicle, and it's going to be powered by 4 nuclear engines. That's right, Lowne Aerospace III has finally entered the nuclear age, after being dependent on chemical rockets up until now, as we were only able to unlock the hyper-efficient nuclear engine after returning from Duna. But looking at the screen, it looks like the spacecraft itself is pretty much done. So now we're going to just package it all up with some struts, not forgetting to add an RTG and some batteries, of course. I added some large solar panels as well, mostly for kind of just aesthetic reasons, really. It just makes the spacecraft look a lot cooler. Eeloo is so far away from the sun that, solar panels are not very effective out there. Solar power is approximately 4% at Eeloo periapsis and 1.4% at Eeloo apoapsis of the values seen at Kerbin, according to the KSP wiki. But now that the payload, I guess, is all packaged up, we can just build the rest of the rocket. And we're going to make use of the brand new 3.75 meter parts. Well, I should say brand new to us, 3.75 meter parts, supplemented by these 2 twin-bore side boosters. I feel like I very rarely use the twin-bore engines. This is quite exciting for me. And then we're going to select our Kerbals and make sure that all of them have an EVA science pack so that we can run EVA science, I guess, while on the mission. Now we can go to the map screen and time warp to a Kerbin to Eeloo transfer window. So again, I'm just eyeballing it. So a Kerbin to, and I overshot the first time. The optimal Kerbin to Eeloo transfer window is where Eeloo is 101 degrees ahead of Kerbin. If you draw a line from Kerbin to the sun to Eeloo, the angle that line forms at the sun is 101 degrees. I think I kind of time warped a bit too far, to be honest, but whatever, it was fine. Okay, so here we are on the launch pad, ready to launch. Here we go. Oh, whoops. Oh no, I forgot to check my staging. Oh, heavens above. Oh, goodness me. Well, now the rocket's crashed before we can even get started. Perhaps you might relate. Do you ever feel like your real-life career is more crash landing than smooth flight? I mean, I can just press F9 here and everything is fixed, but when it comes to your actual job, it can be easy to feel stuck without a solution, or worse, spiraling into burnout. And with layoffs and AI talk everywhere, it can be hard to feel secure about your future. That's why I want to talk about Triple10, today's sponsor. They're an online education platform that helps people pivot into tech careers that are actually stable. And don't worry, you don't need to be a coding whiz to start. They have beginner-friendly programs with no tech background required. And you'll get to work on real projects with real companies, so you get actual experience. And Triple10 offer a 100% money-back guarantee if you don't land a tech job within 10 months. But I wouldn't worry about that, because 82% of graduates get hired within 6 months, giving you the peace of mind that you're on track for a stable career. So if you've been thinking that it's time for a change, here's your sign. You can start learning for as little as $200 per month. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen for a free career consultation with Triple10. It could change your life. And we are off, launching on what's probably actually one of our last launches for this playthrough, because we're very close to completing the tech tree, and by the end of this mission we're going to be even closer than we are now, obviously, because that's the whole point of this mission. I have thought about kind of where to go for the next flight, and I'm thinking maybe not going somewhere and earning science, but rather building up some sort of orbital infrastructure, like a deep space relay network, or even a space station, or maybe even both, who knows. Feeling wild there. Only because I thought about doing that for this mission rather than going to Eeloo after doing Juna and Ike, but we didn't have any of like the big relay dishes and like the Mark II cockpits and stuff that would be quite good for a space station. And so I thought, let's just get a bit more science, unlock some more space station-y things and, you know, communication network things, and then we can kind of do that. So you can expect that for the next mission of this playthrough. But right now, we are going to Eeloo, as I've already mentioned several times at this point. But here we are, we've just finished our stage 1 burns, which are going to point prograde so we can separate, and there's no like engine clipping with that interstage fairing. And there we are, firing up the Rhino engine upper stage as we continue on our way to space. We're not going to reach orbit with this stage. We're going to kind of end up on a suborbital trajectory, but with like a long cruise to apoapsis to give us enough time to, stage that lower engine stage, reconfigure the ship Apollo style, and then, circularize with the power of the nuclear engine. So yes, very exciting that we finally have the nuclear engines available. Ooh. Just deploying the fairing pieces for the launch escape system in the cockpit, and then the main payload, and there you are. So again, yes, we're doing like an Apollo-style configuration, so not just the fact that we have a separate mothership and a separate lander, but also kind of doing this where we launch with the lander underneath the command pod, and then, do this whole reconfiguration maneuver once we're in space. So yeah, we've got an apoapsis of 81 kilometers, so we're kind of far away, so we've got enough time to do this reconfiguration maneuver and point ourselves prograde ready to do our circularization burn. Ready, we're about to boop that lander. There we are. You might notice there's a Stay Putnik probe core on board the lander. I can't remember why I put that there, because we don't need it for any part of this mission. I think I added it just in case I wanted to be able to remotely control the lander, but we never needed to do that. And I should probably mention, don't Jebediah Kerman, Bill Kerman, and Bob Kerman look absolutely dashing? Their portraits have just disappeared. Hang on. There we are. I'm using the Breaking Ground DLC spacesuits. I've noticed in the past that whenever I use these suits, people always ask what mod it is, so I'm just going to get out of the way and make sure I talk about it before I forget to talk about it. It's not a mod, those spacesuits. They're part of the Breaking Ground DLC. They're very nice. They're kind of like look all futuristic-y, I guess. Okay, so now we're going to plot our course to Eeloo. So Eeloo's at kind of this inclined orbit, so we can't get an encounter from it, at least in this part of its orbit, if that makes sense. We can't get an encounter with it straight from Kerman. We're going to have to do a mid-course correction burn. And as I mentioned, we are using the nuclear engines, which are brilliant because they're very, very efficient, but not so brilliant in that they have very, very poor thrust-to-weight ratio. That's why I've got 4 of them. But even with 4, look at the size of the craft, right? It's going to be some long old burns here. So we're doing 2 burns to raise our apoapsis around the sun. We're going to do 1 burn that gets us just to the edge of Kerbin's sphere of influence. Then we'll do another burn that actually gets our orbit, to kind of be to raise our apoapsis to around Eeloo's orbital height, if that makes sense. I'm worried I'm going to be struggling commentating over this mission because I'm in the UK right now. We have a heat wave, and but basically the long and short of it, my office right now is 35 degrees Celsius. And I can't have I've got like a little air conditioning unit. I can't turn it on though because it's really noisy and then it will like ruin the commentary. So apologies if I just like end up flagging a bit. You know, I'm gonna take regular breaks with a cold glass of water and hopefully we'll make it through together. So here we are. Yes, I'm just plotting that aforementioned mid-course correction burn. I've now deleted it because it was plotted on our, you know, predicted orbit rather than our actual orbit, which we'll achieve during this second burn. So yeah, that's why that is. And look at that, we've deployed the little gravity. It's not really a gravity ring, is it? You know, the gravity, I mean, it consists of 3 arms and 3 pods, right? So how about gravity triskelion? Or gravity triangle is probably an easier word to remember there. But yeah, it's kind of satisfying watching it spin up such high speeds during the time-lapse sections of this mission. Unfortunately, it doesn't, you know, accurately simulate Kerbin's gravity like I would like it to, as in it doesn't simulate 1G, because unfortunately the rotors in KSP, the lowest RPM value you can set them to is 5 rotations per minute, which is too fast. The gravity is too high. So ideally, we'd like to be able to, well, I don't know the calculations because I didn't bother doing them because I knew we wouldn't be able to get accurate 1G because we can't set the speed to be low enough. But if we could, yeah, we can calculate what size the gravity ring should be and figure out what RPM we would need. Regardless, we can't do any of that because, as I mentioned, it doesn't go slow enough in this game. But I guess, you know, it's better than nothing, right? As they are going to be in a gravity environment, so, you know, they are going to, hopefully their muscles won't atrophy or anything like that. And look at this! We are doing an EVA science experiment. Some people in the comments let me know that you can do the EVA science experiments whilst in space. You don't have to be on the surface of a planet or moon. So yeah, doing it here. And isn't that cool? That's a real scientific phenomenon, by the way. The thing that Bill Kerman just did, I mean. It's called the Janibikov effect. It's also known as the intermediate axis theorem or tennis racket theorem. When you spin a rigid object like a T-shaped tool, or in, you know, this case, an oversized wing nut in microgravity around its intermediate axis of rotation, it can like unexpectedly flip or tumble periodically, even though no external torque is applied. It was quite famously demonstrated by cosmonaut Vladimir Janibikov while flipping a wing nut inside a space station. It flipped 180 degrees at regular intervals, even though it was spinning freely in microgravity. So there you are. That's what that is a reference to. And I was waffling on so long that we've done it again, this time with Jebediah Kerman. Because I've never done the EVA science experiments before while in space. I've only ever done it on the surface of the Mun and Minmus. So we had to do it, you know, in space, near to Kerbin, space high above Kerbin, and now interplanetary space. Actually, that being said, I think I forgot to do it in space near to Kerbin, so whoops! I mean, at this point, the science gain from doing stuff, you know, on Kerbin itself or near to Kerbin itself is pretty negligible, so it wasn't the end of the world, but, you know, from a completionist's sake, I guess, it would have been nice. By the way, here we are executing our big mid-course correction burn to change our inclination so that we can actually get our intercept with Eeloo. I love how just the gravity triangle, whatever I ended up calling it, sort of flexes when I initiate physics time warp. It's a little bit, you know, KSP's wobble physics can be a dampener sometimes, although kind of funny from a comedic side of things from the video. But yeah, it would have been nice if it didn't just deform like that when I initiated physics time warp. Here I am now trying to get my periapsis to be kind of close to Eeloo so that we can like have a slightly more efficient capture burn. I'm doing it with RCS, and I'm doing it very, very clumsily, as you can see. It's really, really sensitive and twitchy. So I was just sort of tapping I, J, K, and L, and H, and N on the keyboard to kind of do the RCS controls to try and force our periapsis to be a little bit lower, and ultimately I wasn't all that successful. So there we are. I settled on this. We can just do a radial in burn once we, you know, enter Eeloo's sphere of influence if we want to get a little bit closer to the planet. And yeah, that's going to be happening very, very soon. Here we are just time warping around. And as you can see, at the moment, Eeloo is not in fact. So I guess I wasn't being entirely honest earlier when I said that Eeloo is the furthest planet from the sun. It is the furthest planet from the sun most of the time, but occasionally it will kind of dip sort of below Joule's orbit, and Joule becomes the furthest planet from the sun. So yeah, there we are. The two will never collide, luckily, in case you were concerned. And this is because Joule and Eeloo are locked in a 3-to-2 resonance, and they orbit the sun at different inclinations, so it's impossible for them to collide. And yeah, we've got, is that Bill Kerman on EVA? I can't see the, oh no, it's Bob Kerman on EVA, doing a little bit of science from space high above Eeloo. I forgot to enable SAS on the ship, so now we're kind of rotating like this. Hopefully Bob Kerman doesn't feel too sick whilst doing this. I mean, I guess it's because there's 0G, right? So he's getting on board the lander here. And the reason why the ship was spinning like that is because the gravity ring is sort of having an influence on the ship, is applying torque, right? So yeah, and there we are. Look at that. We can just about see Eeloo for the very first time, glistening there in the distance. I'm just going to perform a radial inburn so that our Parallax is a little bit closer. I don't really know why I did this, because it didn't really make much of a difference overall, because Eeloo's gravity is very, very small. And actually this was kind of detrimental, because I think having our capture burn be so close to the surface means it will actually put us on a collision course when we circularize. I'm doing the air quotes when I say circularize, because we won't be circularizing. We'll kind of have an apoapsis that then plops us down onto a collision course with the surface of Eeloo. It's not a big issue, right? We'll just time warp up to apoapsis and perform a prograde burn. But yeah, that's what I was trying to say there. And look at that. Doesn't Eeloo look absolutely lovely? Now, I've got a pre-prepared thing to read to you. It's the quote from the Kerbal Astronomical Society when talking about Eeloo. So, there's been a considerable amount of controversy around the status of Eeloo as being a proper planet or just a lump of ice going around the sun. The debate is still ongoing, since most academic summits held to address the issue have devolved into, on good days, petty name-calling, and on worse ones, all-out brawls. But my particular Eeloo doesn't really look like the normal version of Eeloo, because I have Lynx's Parallax Continued mod installed, and I kind of had to do a mission to Eeloo at some point with this install, because the first time I showcased this in a different video, I hadn't installed it correctly, and so Eeloo kind of just looked like it does in stock KSP. It only looked good once you're on the surface. But now I've installed it correctly, and it actually looks a lot closer to KSP2's Eeloo. And Eeloo in KSP2, that was one of my favorite planetary upgrades for KSP2. It was so good having those big ice clips. So I thought I would also get the Kerbal Astronomical Society quote from KSP2, because that's probably more accurate to this particular version of Eeloo. So, Eeloo is Kerbal's most distinct orbiting body. This dwarf planet seems to enjoy its lonely, highly eccentric orbit, though it does dip into joules for brief visits. Missions here are costly, given Eeloo's orbit, low gravity, lack of atmosphere, and spotty solar power potential. Even so, the difficult trip is worth it to see the frozen cliffs up close. And yeah, the frozen cliffs in KSP2's Eeloo are much bigger and more dramatic than the ones in, Lynx's Parallax Continued. But Lynx's Parallax Continued is nonetheless still very pretty. And I thought I'd aim to kind of land with it to close to the edge of one of those big canyons. And there they are, coming down into view as Bob Kerman and Jebediah Kerman begin their descent in the lander. And yeah, I spotted like a little mesa in the middle of this sort of large canyon opening area. It's probably got a geographic name, like a geological name, but I don't know what that is, so apologies for that. If you are any geologists watching, can leave a comment, let me know if this has a proper name. But there we are. Pretty much nailed that, didn't we? I didn't want to land in the canyon itself because well, now I think about it, I don't really know why I didn't want to land in the canyon itself. In fact, if anything, it would have been better to land in the canyon, so we had a more epic background for any potential screenshots, etc, etc. But here we are, touching down nice and gently. There we go. So now that we've landed, we can run an action group that, runs all of our science experiments. We can gather the precious data. Now, if you wanted to emulate this particular mission, this lander would be great for getting lots and lots of science, because as you can see, we have a huge amount of delta V, so we could very easily hop around different biomes, gather up an enormous amount of science. But, as I've said several times during this playthrough, we're only doing one landing per celestial body, so that, it varies up where we go. And yes, I think I've deviated from kind of the normal player progression of KSP1, like going straight from Juno to Eeloo. It's quite a big jump. I think most players will then kind of do maybe like a one-way Eve mission after doing Juno. Like when I say one-way Eve mission, I of course mean sending a robotic, uncrewed like rover or lander, right? You wouldn't go and send a Kerbal on a one-way mission there, would you? And here we are, Jebediah Kerman has got a banana. We're doing an EVA science experiment once again. There we are. It's like those classic experiments you see kind of in videos where people submerge a banana in liquid nitrogen, freeze it, and then smash it with a hammer. There we are. That's probably... I don't know if there's a specific science experiment that was done in space about smashing a banana. Maybe someone could enlighten me in the comments, but there we are. And then, of course, we can do the most important part of any surface excursion in Kerbal Space Program, that is planting the Lowne Aerospace flag. There we are, with a nice little commemorative plaque. And there we are, they can just stare off into space for a bit, literally, right? And then, well, now that we've done all the important stuff, we can get back on the lander and start thinking about getting back to the mothership. But you know, before I forget, when I was reading out those Kerbal Astronomical Society descriptions for Eeloo, one thing that did catch my eye was that it said that Eeloo does not have an atmosphere, which actually... Well, that's true, it doesn't have an atmosphere, but it was actually planned to have an atmosphere when it was first conceived by Harvester back in the day, and, you know, real-life equivalent of Eeloo, Pluto, and I guess geologically it's very similar to Europa, moon of Saturn, and both Europa and Pluto are understood to have a very, very tenuous atmosphere. Unfortunately, my understanding of why it doesn't have an atmosphere in KSP is because KSP's, like, model or engine, this is where I'm very out of my depth because I'm not a programmer or a coder at all, it basically can't do atmospheres on any celestial body that's smaller than Duna. I'm not sure why, that's the extent of my knowledge of this, but yeah, that's just a little interesting bit of a tidbit, because I know Moho, when Moho was first added to the game, that had an atmosphere, and it was punishingly difficult. I keep thinking about doing a video where I install the version of KSP that had... I'm looking at the screen. I totally overcooked my ascent burn just there. So I'm kind of did a bit of a retrograde burn and a prograde burn to adjust and kind of get an intersect with our target vessel without even needing to do a maneuver node. Look at that. Lovely close separation. 0.1 kilometers. So... great stuff. What was I talking about? Oh yes, I did think about installing or downgrading my KSP install so I have the version of Moho that has the atmosphere. But you know, I've watched videos online of like Scott Manley attempting a landing and stuff, and it just looks not fun. Basically, like it was very, very hot atmosphere, so things just explode and overheat, and it's not great. Anyway, Bob Kerman there spinning a little wing nut there, doing that tennis racket theorem experiment, and then you get back onto the ship. And I think that's pretty much all of the science that we need to gather from this. I think we need to run the magnetometer from space near to Eeloo. I don't think I've done that experiment yet, but the magnetometer is on the mothership. It's not on the lander, but I can see the mothership, right? It's now coming into view. Bill Kerman once again being left behind. I really ought to make a 3-seat lander so Bill Kerman can finally come on one of these surface missions. I've been neglecting Valentina. I kind of feel sorry for Valentina. She's not been coming with us, but the command pod I've been using basically for the whole of this playthrough has only had 3 seats, so I guess that's kind of not an excuse now because look at the crew capacity of this ship. But I'm just thinking about the re-entry module, right? Maybe I'll have to add like the little Mercury style command pod on top of the Apollo style command pod to make one giant 4-seater one. I don't know, it's food for thought. But like I say, in the next mission I'm thinking we just do something fun. Not that this isn't fun. I actually find this more fun than building space stations and comm networks. But, you know, doing something fun as in building a space station or doing a comm network or maybe even like establishing a mun base or something like that. I don't think I'm going to do too many like non-science gathering missions before I've finished unlocking the tech tree, just because we really do need to be prioritizing unlocking the tech tree because there are some components I would really like before we want to start thinking about building things like mun bases. But yeah, it's just things to think about, I suppose. I better start thinking about it quickly, right? Because this mission is closing up. We've not got much footage left for me to talk over before I need to actually think about where we're going to be going for our next mission. We do still need to plot a journey back to Kerbin, though, so that's going to be kind of the next big challenge to overcome for, you know, our Eeloo mission. Now, I couldn't remember if I'd run the science experiments on the lander in space near to Eeloo, so I just quickly ran them again, and then I boarded the command pod. It said, you've already got this data, so I had to dump the experiment, so wasted my time a little bit there. And look how much delta V we've got left. Oh my goodness, 3,419 meters per second. So maybe I over-engineered this ship somewhat, but I kind of wanted lots of delta V so that I could force a Kerbin encounter without having to wait for a transfer window, which might have meant doing a very expensive kind of interplanetary mid-course correction burn. Sometimes you need to do like a big radial in or radial out burn around the sun, which they can be very expensive. So I thought, let's just bring a bit of extra delta V so I can kind of force a Kerbin encounter. And this is me attempting to force said Kerbin encounter. So just those grey nodes getting creeping closer and closer together. I have sped the footage up a bit, so you're not spending quite as long as I spent trying to get the maneuver node to work, I guess. So we are, getting a little bit closer there. Just a little bit more tweaking, and I think... there we are. We have a Kerbin encounter manifesting itself before our eyes. So, yes, now we can go ahead and perform that maneuver burn and get our Kerbin intercept. I didn't really look beyond just getting the intercept, and I didn't try and get our periapsis to intercept Kerbin's atmosphere for this particular burn, because it would make more sense just get the intercept and then do a second, much smaller mid-course correction burn to I kind of fine-tune the Kerbin encounter, if that makes sense. So yeah, here we are executing that one big... This is probably like our final really, really big burn of the mission. It's so fun just watching that gravity ring or gravity triangle. I can't remember what I decided to call it now. Gravity spinning up as we form our little burn just here. Well, say little burn, it's a big old burn, isn't it? Yeah, I did warn you guys that I might start flagging when commentating over this mission because, we're in a bit of a heat wave. I've got like lots of cold fizzy drinks I got out of my fridge. I'm sort of like just holding on to a can of Coke just so that there's something cold touching my skin, and then hopefully that cools my blood as it flows around the rest of me. This was weird. And but it's I'm flagging a bit. Like I say, it's we've got a bit of a heat wave going on. The room I record in is very, very small. It's like probably like 1.5 meters by 3 meters. I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit. Sorry, Americans. And the walls are covered in foam. There's 2 big, hot 4K monitors blasting into my face. I got my full tower, big, beefy PC that's churning out heat. It's not a great recipe for comfortable recording sessions, let me just say. And I can't have my window open because I don't want my neighbors to think I'm some sort of weirdo that just talks to myself. And I don't have my door open so that... I guess same sort of reasons, really. I don't want to reduce the echo and all that, basically. So yeah, what have I'm just looking back at the screen. What have I missed that I didn't talk about whilst I was complaining about the conditions in which I'm currently sitting? So here we are performing our mid-course correction burn to get that fine-tuned Kerbin periapsis of 17-ish kilometers. It's very, very low, but we have the almighty ablative heat shield on our re-entry module, which is very, very OP. And I've overshot. So like before, when I was trying to get my Eeloo encounter fine-tuned, I just used RCS to try and get our periapsis around Kerbin a little bit more optimal. I did a better job this time than I did with Eeloo, though. And there is Kerbin, looming ahead, which means that Jebediah Kerbin, Bill Kerbin, and Bob Kerbin are going to be returning home after spending a massive 6 years and 17 days in space. They didn't even use my gravity ring. They just sat in the Apollo-style command pod the entire time. I told a bit of a fib then, didn't I? Now that we've just time warped, it's now been 6 years and 18 days. So there we are. They're going to safely re-enter with no issues whatsoever. That's right. There's going to be some drama here. I right-clicked the docking port and I couldn't see the undock button. Like, where is it? There's no undock button. Right? I'm just looking at it. Yeah, there definitely isn't. I was like, how do I undock these 2 ships? So then, then it kind of exploded and then it worked. I then realized if I right-clicked the lander's docking port, that's where the undock button is. I feel like this has never been a thing, right? Has it? Where, like, just watching the explosions in the background there. This has never been a thing, right? Where you only one of the docking ports can be undocked. It might be because I've got the community fixes mod installed. I can't remember the name of the mod, but it's like a community patch basically to fix a few things with KSP. The main reason I have it is because it fixes that really annoying sound bug where engines will stop making sounds, after playing for a certain amount of time. You've got to restart the game to fix it. That's kind of why I have it installed. And I had a brief panic there where the game just seemed to freeze for a couple of seconds. I was like, please don't freeze now. We've nearly finished the mission. And we can deploy our parachutes, coming in for a nice splashdown over Kerbin's oceans. And we can jettison our heat shield just to slightly lower our descent speed so our impact speed is as low as possible. This is taking a while. Let's just speed the footage up. Here we go. Look at that lovely water appearing beneath us. And there we have it. Splashdown has successfully taken place. Just do a quick vision inspection of the pod. Yep, all seems tickety-boo. So we could just go ahead and recover our vessel and just have a look at how much science we earned from this mission. Let's see. 5,592 science earned. That's going to be tremendous in our quest to unlock the tech tree. Just recovered the debris on the launch pad just there. So let's go to the R&D facility and see what we can unlock. So as I mentioned earlier, I kind of wanted to be able to build like deep space communications networks. So I went down the automation side of the tech tree to get the big communications dishes, and I then saw a little browse of the other tabs available. I remembered, yes, it would be nice to have the bigger rover wheels, so I've unlocked field science and advanced motors, so that we've got those big beefy rover wheels. And if we're going to be launching big beefy rovers, it'd be nice to be able to launch big beefy rockets. So we've unlocked the massive 5-meter diameter Saturn V parts for future missions we can have massive rockets. And now I don't really have any priorities on the tech tree, so I'm just going to unlock things that I think look like they might be fun. So we've unlocked some more plane parts here with, heavy landing and hypersonic flight and all that stuff. And we need to unlock the meta materials tab because you get the 4-way... No, it's not 4-way, is it? It's a 6-way connector piece, so we can build space stations more easily with it, basically. Although I don't really use it that often when I build space stations these days, so I don't know, we might not even need it. And is there a moral to this story? I'm not sure. And now you can see I'm just sort of deliberating which tabs to unlock, and there we are. That's pretty much all we can unlock now. We've only got 332 science remaining, so for now, this is the status of the tech tree with the completion of our Eeloo mission. As you can see, not many more nodes to unlock. And it's that time in the video where I have to thank all the names on the right hand side of the screen, my YouTube members and Patreon members who support me directly, and they get this video early and without any ads as well. And they also get the craft file. So yeah, you can sign up using the links below if you want to. It's great. And yes, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you're enjoying the series so far as it nears its conclusion, and I'll catch you in the next one.